Bruno Le Maire for supporting Paris Europlace in its strategy of accelerating the development of the Paris Financial Center. Valérie Pécresse won again the much disputed Paris Île-de-France region, so she apologized for not being able to attend. She won France's largest and wealthiest region. It's a good excuse. But with us on the panel, we have a great high-profile guest. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Fireside chat. And I'd like to introduce to you Xavier Gire, Senior Executive Vice President, Finance EDF, and also the Chairman of the Issuer Committee of Paris Europlace. Hello, good afternoon, Xavier Gire. Thank you to be with us. We'll have very soon on our panel also Philippe Henry, former EMEA Head of Global Banking at HSBC. He'll talk about the latest report of Paris Financial Place. And in a minute, we'll be with Denis Ladgaillerie, the CEO of Believe. Thank you for your attention. So, Xavier Gire, I said you are the chairman of the Corporate Issuer Committee of Paris Europlace. This is a full ecosystem here. Investors, banks, regulatory authorities, geared to risk-taken, fast-growing companies. So, could you please detail this committee and who is part of this committee and what is its mission?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this question. I'm very pleased to be with you today. I mean, very easy. I mean, in order to have a great finance place, you need great investors and you need great issuers. And so the role of this committee is to gather issuers, corporate issuers. We are more or less 50 people, both from major corporates and also from startups. And I think it's very important to have these two entities all together, and also federations, public state-owned government entities who all together work about how to improve Paris financial market.
From an issuer point of view, what are your priorities in this committee? What was it about?
Well, I mean, we analyze the market first, and to say clearly the truth, and this is today what we all highlight. I mean, things are very great today. I mean, just by let the figures speak for themselves. I mean, for example, in 21, very sharp increase of the IPOs. I mean, in particular, and we will speak with Denis in a few seconds, Believe, HRS, also Affluent Medical, Aramis are great examples. Amount of the capital raised in the first quarter of 21, Paris represented 43% of the capital raised on Euronext, and more than 1.4 billion euros of capital have been raised. And about the number of companies listed on Euronext, Paris hosts 55% of all companies listed on Euronext. These are just a few figures to highlight how great our financial market is today.
And what are the recent achievements in the ongoing work carried out by the issuers committees in order to increase this attractiveness?
Well, we've worked a lot during the last 2 years, and in particular during the pandemic period, in order first to make some recommendations about how to finance the corporates after and during the crisis. During the crisis, we worked on the short-term financing. We worked also about how to collect increased household savings in order to develop dedicated funds. And these were contributed, among others, of course, to the France recovery label that was announced in October last year by the government and all the stakeholders. Today, 180 funds have been labeled, and they've gathered more than 15 billion euros. And they contribute to support French corporates, and in particular SMEs, and they contribute also to develop ESG commitments. Second recommendation about distributing this money to companies through quasi-equity, and the government announced earlier this year in March recovery hybrid loans, recovery bond systems, which represent 20 billion euros today of mobilized private funds benefiting from the state guarantee. And after that, we also considered that it was absolutely key, and it is key, to highlight the role of public equity market. Because we consider, and all the issuers consider, that it's absolutely key to develop a continuity between private equity and public equity market. And we published a report some months ago with 3 key points. First, to develop this continuity between private equity and public equity markets, and in particular through the development of cornerstone and crossover funds, where I think it is key. I'm sure we will discuss about that. Develop training, and Euronext has developed great initiatives about that, PE shares, tech shares. So continuity between private and public funding. Second, increase the attractiveness for listed SMEs. And it's not that easy to be an SME listed because you have to be well-known, you have to be renowned, and for that we consider that maybe it could be considered some sponsored research, and in any case to think about how to finance research for these SMEs. And third matter on which we've worked is to develop new labels and indexes. And for example, Euronext created just a few weeks ago this CAC 40 ESG, which is absolutely key in order to highlight all the corporates who take commitments towards green financing, towards social commitments. And for investors and issuers, it's a great way of developing jointly their efficiency.
Thank you, Xavier Gir. I think you work a lot in this committee. I would say keep going. And let me shift to Philippe Henry. He's the former head of global banking at HSBC. But you are here, Philippe, to tell us about this report this working group that you set up last April. Which are the members of this group, and on what was the emphasis precisely?
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me to chair this working group under Europlace. I think we had in this working group to respond to 2 main questions. How to mobilize the Paris marketplace to support better the post-COVID growth of the economy. And the second question was how to contribute to the financing of the 4th industrial revolution. So in reality, to do that, we set up a survey, and I strongly encourage you to take a look at the 33 questions we asked to more than 50 participants, because we decided to interview deeply the various participants of this Paris marketplace, including lawyers, private equity company, growth company, mature company, regulators, auditors, and of course investors. And on the back of that, I think there have been 2 main outcomes. The first one, I'm not going to repeat that, but as well as presented by the previous panelists and speakers that have pointed out the strength of the Paris marketplace, it is confirmed by the feedback we receive from number of our of the colleagues we interviewed. I'm not going to highlight too much, but of course the rise of IPO over the past 12 months, when you recognize that 43% of the capital raised in Europe during Q1, I think, have been raised in the Paris Stock Exchange. It's just an example. Clearly, this has been seen by the group, as well as the recognition of Paris as already a large financial center, as well as, and it is something I would like to highlight, the efficiency of the regulatory body that made huge progress over the past years to adapt their approach to the modern market.
You said the questions are very relevant, but the answers are very interesting in your report. Indeed, could you elaborate a little bit more on which topics did you place the emphasis this time in the report, please?
Yes, I think this is the second outcome. Very much we have been in a capacity to make 40 recommendations, 40 that are included into this report, and I will going to raise the 4 main themes that we have seen through the recommendation. The first element, and I'm sure, Denise, you were going to say something as well on it, is to reinforce the ecosystem around the fast-growing companies and the tech companies. This is the bridge between private equity and public equity that is at the moment the center of the focus of our working group. We probably need to encourage at European level the creation of a proper Small Business Act. A lot of things have been done, in particular in the context of La Loi Pacte, to support the companies, but we have to do more. And in particular, and it has been discussed in the previous panel, the necessity to simplify the information disclosures around that the company has to provide around the ESG topic. ESG is a very complex topic. As you know, ESG includes taxonomy, data disclosures, traceability, conduct and scoring. And a number of recently listed companies or candidates to be listing soon have highlighted that all that sort of non-financial reporting coming in addition to the financial reporting they have already to provide risk to be too much unless we can coordinate between investors and issuers, a framework that works, that is balanced, and that is doable. And I'm sure, Denis, you will say something as well on it. And we agreed with Xavier that in September, we have to put together investors and issuers to discuss this element that is very important to coordinate at Paris level, but also at European level. So back on my first point, and sorry to be long, we need to develop pillar and cornerstone investors. Being an investor into a mature company request different skills and knowledge than investing into a growth company. And it is absolutely clear that we need to attract, as an example, more competencies on the Paris marketplace, whether it is about auditors, whether it is about investors, whether it is about analysts. And this is also a major point, and Europlace will be very pleased after the summer period, to make progress and make proposal in that area. So the investor approach is absolutely important. We need to continue to encourage international, but also domestic, institutional investors to accompany the crossover companies. So that's really the first main message. The second one, I'm not going to be too long because it's about ESG.
We are here to listen to you. Don't be too short. It's okay.
It's about ESG. You have to remember that according to some analysis, if we want to have a little chance to match the net zero in 2050, the planet needs to invest $1.5 trillion per year. So we need to be organized. It cannot be only public money. It has to be private money. It has to be via listed company. We are back to the first point I mentioned, but with a focus on ESG. This is absolutely fundamental. That's the second. But the third one is about the consolidation of the attractiveness of the tax, legal, and regulatory framework, including corporate law. We made an extensive analysis of the situation. The picture is good, but again, looking at the fast-growing companies, there are some tweaks we need to add into this. And again, we make a number of proposals around this topic that will have to be discussed in September. So Xavier will be very busy with the outcome of this working group. I was mentioning the Small Business Act. I can mention as well, we put a proposal on the table to be discussed, obviously. Should we implement dual-class share structures in Paris? Technically, we can do that. But there are some elements that are not aligned, and we need to do some work on it, but this is a question. And the fourth point, and I will conclude by that, is about clearly promoting internationally the multiple progress that this Place de Paris has done over the past 5 years. It is not known, and we need to do more promotion.
Thank you, Philippe Henry. 40 recommendations. One more. My recommendation is to read this report as quickly as possible. Thanks for joining us, Denis Ladgairi, for this chat. You are the CEO of Believe, a company that helps 850,000 artists build and grow their career through music technology and services. You help artists and labels to develop their work in the digital world. And I think, Xavier Gier, that you play very well the music of finance as well. Could you perform a piece with Denis, please?
Okay, thank you. First, I'm very happy that Denis is with us today. You know, we met with Denis some years ago as I was running Exchange Private Equity, and we were one of the very happy friends who were accompanying Believe. And so Denis has organized and developed such a great journey for Believe, for your company. And we are very happy to hear from you, and this is the key question. How did you think about this journey? First, private equity, now IPO, public market equity. What's your experience?
Well, I'd say the reason we IPO was we are at the beginning of a new journey. So I think we have created a lot of value in developing artist labels in the past 15 years, and that has translated into creating significant shareholder value in the process. What we think is there's a very large opportunity ahead of us in the next 10 years, and we thought that going public and the flexibility that comes with going public was a great way for us to start to set a base for a growth plan for the next 10 years.
And so why Paris?
I think both IPO and Paris were a choice, which is we grow organically and we grow by acquisition. And so for us, associating management of our target to value creation is key, and it's much easier done when we can do that through long-term incentive plans where we can pay some of our acquisitions with papers rather than cash. So the alignment was very important. And I'd say, why Paris? Because one, like what few people realize is that Europe is going to be one of the largest music markets in the world by the end of this decade. So for us, being at the center of one of the larger markets is key. Two, we have all of our technology capabilities and technology functions in Paris. We've looked at whether that makes sense, whether it would be better for us to have that in the US or somewhere else. And the answer has always been better talent pool, greater talent pool that has allowed us to build more innovative tools in Paris. And so therefore, for us, the alignment with the markets where we operate in, our presence and the capabilities being in Paris made it, I would say, the very logical choice for us to choose Euronext as the listing place.
And what's for you the impact of the ESG investors? Is it key for your development, your financing?
I would say, generally, the experience that we've had is, like, listen, we're super happy to have been successful listing the business, and this is really the first phase. When we look at the pools of capitals and investors available, and level of education on ESG is very important for us. That's at the core of our development because we need to build trust with artist labels. So that implies a number of things in how we manage socially our responsibility with our artists, with our people. So it was a key pillar for us. But I would say from a pool of capital standpoint, it's really, to what Philippe was saying, is it's very clear growing the pool of growth capital in Europe is absolutely essential. What we see is we went public not because we didn't have any choices. We had plenty of private equity come to us at much higher valuation than what we saw in the public market. So it was not a question of choice. But one of the key elements for us is really for companies tomorrow, as Philippe was saying, tech growth is a very specific profile, and therefore the mindset has to be different. You were talking about how you invested 15 years ago. You took risk. The rewards were extremely high for you, and I think we need in the public, for public investors, to have pools of capitals with the same mindset, with the same way of doing the due diligence on the business so that they can come early as cornerstones, as anchor, really understanding how the value is going to be created in the future, what the investment cycle is.
And do you have, one recommendation for your place or for all the stakeholders here?
I think the recommendation is really how can we grow the pool of capitals going towards growth companies in Europe across and in France first. And I would say in Europe generally to get to the right scale. What's very clear to me we had over 70 one-on-one discussions with large funds through the process. The level of education and mindset and the large pool of capital are US-based, they are UK-based. The pool of large European growth-minded capital in Europe is much, much smaller. I think that's the number one lever that in my view, should be pulled.
Thank you so much, Denis, and thank you for being with us today. I mean, it's a
Thank you.
great
This
experience.
IPO clearly paves the way for others in the tech. Benefit from the broadest, most diversified pool of investors available. It's a perfect example of how European markets finance high-growth tech companies. And believe it or not, Paris is the logical place for Believe to list and for others tech stocks as well. Let me thank you for your contributions, Mr. It's time to move to another panel, post-crisis technologies, opportunities for investors.